What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I want to thank you for joining me on this beautiful day in the Anduin Vale for a custom scenario made by Synn of the Darkcloud. This is a 3v4 survival matchup wherein the various free peoples of Middle-earth will have to withstand a massive invasion from the orcs of Gundabad, backed up with a little bit of help from their allies, the Hillmen of Rhudaur. Now, as you can see, this is a very different take on your average river map. Now, usually you're fighting over 1 or 2 choke points, basically just trying to get across the river, but this time around, the orcs of Gundabad will be fighting their way upriver through fierce resistance from the elves of Lorien, the elves of Mirkwood, and the men of Dale. It's not going to be an easy fight by any means, so without any further ado, let's get into the army comps and then into the replay itself. I hope you guys enjoy it. Now, as per usual, we're going to be starting with my army. I'm commanding one of the forces from the orcs of Gundabad, and there's not a whole lot that I can say about the orcs of Gundabad, so we're going to skim through them fairly quickly, since I'm sure you guys are all familiar with their roster and their playstyle. But let me draw your attention for a moment here to these new Warg Rider models, which are just damn fine. Damn fine. And the orcs of Gundabad and the orcs of the Misty Mountains both share colors of wargs, but the Isengard wargs are colored a little bit differently, just to add a little bit of flavor and just kind of enhance the immersion aspect of the mod while playing as the various factions. But in any case, I've got 1 unit of Warg Riders, very slim in my Warg Riders this time around. A couple units of Orc Fellers, who are expendable shock troops, AP of course on the charge. Very, I wouldn't say extremely deadly, but you know, they will do their job. In the back here, I've got my single unit of Goblin Trackers. I think I've got 4 units of Witch Realm Scourge Raiders, who currently are not AP, as one-headed axes are no longer AP, and that's what these guys tend to have. But they do a lot of damage, and they've got some pretty damn nice armor as well, so it's definitely a worthy pick for your Gundabad line. I've got some more of them back there. In the back, of course, we've got a unit of Hammer Guard. Why would you not bring a unit of Hammer Guard as Gundabad? They are so strong with that AP and their extra HP and heavy armor. And over here we have the Witch Realm Blackguard, which, if you guys have not seen them somehow, this is a new model for the Witch Realm Blackguard, very Black Numenorian-ish. And I'm kind of hoping that this model makes a comeback, maybe with some of the Black Numenorians in Mordor, maybe as an armor upgrade, or maybe for the Mouth of Sauron, or possibly even for Umbar. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. In any case, moving on, I got 2 units of Gundabad Guard. A very strong, very reliable spear, something that Gundabad definitely needs to give them a little bit of staying power when it comes to their pushing, especially when you are fighting cavalry units. These guys can be used to zone out cavalry from the front of your Gundabad rush ball, which is an extremely important thing for being effective as Gundabad. You got to be able to deal with cavalry in some way or another. Over here, I got a unit of Mountain Trolls, and I think I've got about 3 or 4 units of Orc Marauders as well, backed up with 2 units of Orc Halberds, and last but not least, I've got, I believe, 2 units of Goblin Band. So it's a pretty decent army. I've got some quality mixed in there with some of our more quantity units. Now let's move on over here. Take a look at the single Rhudaur army here. Some of the support sent from the Hillmen to aid their allies, the Orcs of Gundabad, and they're going to be commanded by WK, our very talented map maker. Now here we have the Mercenary War Chiefs, which is just another name for sellswords. If you guys play DSC, I'm sure you're familiar with these guys. They are actually getting a buff in the next patch as well. They're going to be getting some shield value, and I think a little bit more damage or armor, something like that. But they are going to have low morale. Very low morale. That is the trade-off for these guys. They can do a lot of damage. They're very strong in terms of armor and defense, but they don't have a ton of staying power because it's easy to frighten them off. So yeah, definitely a worthy unit, but you have to take care of them and you have to support them. Over here we have some Foragrim Axemen, who are actually, I don't know if they got the proper stats that I gave them in the last hotfix, but these guys are supposed to be able to hide everywhere, and naturally, being a 2-handed axe unit, they are an AP shock unit. Moving on over this way, we've got, I believe, 4 or 5 units of the Rhudaur Swordsmen, the mainline infantry unit for Rhudaur, and I like the look of them. They look like Vikings, honestly. But moving into the back here, we have the Angmar Enslavers, which is a halberd bodyguard for Rhudaur. They are 2 HP, a lot of damage, and naturally AP as well, being a halberd unit. Very scary, but of course they are quite low in number, so you need to be able to support them, otherwise they can find themselves overwhelmed and surrounded, and they won't be nearly as effective in that kind of situation. Over here we have the Herenadine Troll Hunters, who are very, very deadly. They're spear units, so they can take care of themselves a little bit out in the field, and they've got a real nice shield value as well. So this is kind of the epitome of, at least in my opinion, javelin units. They've got armor, they've got shield value. The only thing they don't have is AP. Or no, AP, of course they have AP. HP. So they do not have a second HP, though they kind of look like a unit, I suppose, that would have it. But yeah, they can be felled quite easily from like AP and like other javelins, crossbows, and things like that. Now I know WK's got some more forces around here somewhere, but I think a lot of them are hiding. Yeah, we've got some more Rhudaur swordsmen in here, and I know he's got some Blackwolds and some, I think they're called Foradrim javelins now, not Rhudaur slaughterers, and they are a two-handed AP mace unit that have HP and are also able to hide everywhere. Just about does it for WK's army. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at two of the armies that are of Gundabad that are separated from us by a river. Now here we have the forces of Stefan2110, who is one of the developers for Reforged. I believe he works on unit descriptions and things like that, and just generally making your life a lot easier. Now I don't know if I've mentioned this, but Stefan is in charge of something that is going to give you a lot more transparency in terms of unit stats via the unit descriptions. So for example, in 0.95, you're going to be able to tell exactly how much mass a unit has, how fast it is, and the exact breakdown of its defense stats, so you can choose your stats very, very wisely. So yeah, it's a nice little addition. But in any case, he's got, I believe, 2 units of Blackwatch Legion. He's got some Witch Realm Scourge Raiders as well. Some Trolls of Gundabad, who are quite strong. Very expensive, though. He's also got some Guardians of Karndun, classic Witch Realm units here. In the back, got a unit of Witch Realm Blackguard, of course, and some Hammer Guard as well. And I believe he's also got a couple units of Goblin Trackers and things like that. Yeah, the rank and file are up here in front. Got some Goblin Trackers, some Orc Marauders, and some Orc Fellers out in front as shock infantry. Now we've got another force, which is way back here. This one's being commanded by Nephi. And he's got, I believe, a couple units of Guardians of Karndun as well. He's got 2 to 4 units of the Witch Realm Pikes, Witch Realm Scourge Raiders as well. And he's got a mounted bodyguard. And back here we have the Witch Realm Inquisitors, the mounted Witch Realm Inquisitors, who have retained their old model, which is awesome. It would be a shame if we lost it, and I'm glad that at least this mounted company is going to be holding on to it. And they function a lot like the White Knights, a very, very large cavalry bonus, 2 HP heavy armor, but they do not have lances like other knights, so they've got a higher anti-cavalry bonus, rather, to kind of balance out that the loss of their lances. Nephi's also got some Blackwatch Legion, and I believe he's got some Angmar Trolls as well, who have been toned down a little bit from the previous battle that we saw them in. They are now a little bit less powerful than the Trolls of Gundabad, but they do have, of course, the shields to compensate for that. So it's a bit of a trade-off. They're both very strong units in their own right. Oh yeah, and we've got the Witchers as well, who they're going to do some work in this battle. Just you guys wait and see. But yeah, I think that's just about it. Nephi's also got some Hammer Guard, but and Orc Marauders and the kind of rank and file that you'd expect. But yeah, that just about does it for the attacking army. So let's go ahead and let's see what the defenders have brought to the battle today. Now over here we have the forces of Dale being commanded by Mech Creed, who is our... Actually, let me say a little bit note here on the defenders. This is very much hard mode for the defenders, having to fight this many Orcs of Gundabad. There's like 16,000 Orcs of Gundabad that they're going to have to deal with today. So with that in mind, we have actually stacked the defending team with some of the better players on the Discord. Now, Creed is our current reigning champion from our last Reforged Discord tournament. So he definitely knows what he's doing, and he's going to be commanding Dale today. So he's got, I believe, 4 or so units of Dale Spearmen. He's got a very long, impressive line of Dale Spears. Out here on this isle, he's got a couple units of Hidden Athala Rangers who can do some serious work, especially against cavalry. Have the BP trait, of course, and some really high range and accuracy. Now, he's got more armies hidden. He's got more forces hidden in this little area as well. I believe he's got some Lake Town Patrol, like River Patrol, which are a javelin unit, replacement for the Rivermen. Over here we got some Blackshot Dragon Slayers, who are the Dragon Slayers that you've all come to know and love, with their deadly AP arrows. Actually, I don't know if this has been showed off, but they've got kind of Wind Lance bows, like a new bow model. I'm sure you'll recognize from The Hobbit if you've seen the trilogy. And back here we have a catapult, the only artillery piece on the field, which is quite nicely placed to support either end here, depending on what the needs of the battle are. Got some daily marksmen as well, with their brand new upgrade model. They look real sexy. And, oh yeah, this is actually really cool. This is the upgraded model for the Barding Marksman or the Bardian marksmen, who are a little bit more in line, I suppose, with that kind of like fur-trimmed Russian look with those like onion dome helmets, similar to what the Dale marksmen and things like that wear. So that's kind of neat. And yeah, got some more Dale spearmen over here. He's got some sword masters and a whole bunch of other stuff that are hidden. I just can't quite remember it all, but don't worry, you'll see a picture of the unit of the army comp while I do this section. But let's move on now to his ally. We have the forces of Lorien being commanded by Rules, one of the players that has been around on the Discord for basically ever, pretty much since Reforged launched in like February of last year. So he definitely knows what he's doing. And he's got some Lorien heavy spearmen, some Lorien swordsmen, and some Lorien axemen here to back them up. He's also got, yes, I believe 2 units of Lorien heavy archers, a unit of Galadrim veterans, or Galadrim nobles is what they're called now, but they're previously the Galadrim veteran warriors. Over here we have the Karas Galadon Guardians, who I don't think you guys have seen before. This is a new pike bodyguard unit for Lothlorien, and it is very expensive, costing 1,400, but it is extremely strong as well. I think it's it is actually the only pike unit that has 2 HP. So yeah, very, very scary. High damage, high armor, needs to be outflanked and surrounded if you're going to have a chance of destroying it. Yet more axemen, spearmen, and swordsmen. Basically all the hits here from the Lorien army, and then of course he's got some Sindar archers serving as his general's bodyguard. Let's pop across the river here, take a look at the third and final defending force, that being the Elves of Mirkwood, commanded by Synn of the Darkcloud. He's got, I believe, a couple units of Hirnek, or multiple units of Hirnek, I think about 2 to 3, possibly 4 units of Hirnek. Also got some Hiribeng, and 1 unit of Elder Kingsguard, as powerful as they ever were for the most part, and again, still 2 HP. He's also got some Hirilang as well to back them up. So a lot of elite units, but not a lot of numbers here from the Elves of Mirkwood, as they are quite low in numbers, especially with their heavy infantry. He's also got a couple units of Pathfinders, which I believe are hidden in this pass down here. Yes, there's going to be, I think, a couple units of them in there. Oh yeah, we've got some Dalian cavalry and stuff over here as well, but we've already done Dale, so we'll move on from that. You guys will be able to see the army comps. So, but yeah, he's got a couple units of Pathfinders in there. And he's got some Palace Guard, who I'm sure many of you are eager to see back in action. Palace Guard have actually been quite changed from what they were in previous iterations of the build. They were previously a spear unit with 3 HP, which means that they suffered quite badly against other elite units, just because spears get a malice versus other infantry, I believe a -3 penalty. But they have lost their spear bonuses. Now they are just a regular old elite unit. They have AP as well, which is a nice thing for them to have. And they have gone back down to 2 HP. So still a very strong unit, but much changed from what it used to be. And I believe there's some other like hidden Mirkwood units and stuff in here, but I can't quite remember them all. So I think that's it for the army comps. Let's go ahead and get into the replay. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Now, in the opening stages of the battle, myself and WK are going to be moving forward with some of our more trash tier units. You can see that I've got a fairly long column here of Orc Marauders on the move, and this is because we want to suss out any hidden units that may be on the banks of the Anduin. Now, Anduin maps in general seem to run around a central theme, that being that there are a lot of places to hide your troops, and honestly, it's my favorite kind of map. The Anduin map that's in the game right now is my favorite team battle map, basically in the entire game. So, with that in mind, we definitely want to try and keep an eye on any potential ambushes that are going to be coming our way. Now, I don't think we're going to have anything on our side of the river here, but I did notice during the deployment zone that there are a couple of units that are hanging out here, and I've got a pretty good feeling that those are Athala Rangers. So I'm going to move forward with some of my my Orc Raiders, and again, we're just going to try and flush them out of their hidey holes and push them off of this island, and then use it as a kind of a staging ground for an attack across the river towards the much better defended Dale position on the western half of that river. We are just going to fast forward just a little bit right now, and I think this is where WK starts to move out with some of his infantry as well. WK actually has a really good plan here, and I'll explain it a little bit more as we go into it, but a lot of it has to do with kind of the traditional, or a very tried and true tactic called concentration of force, but I will explain that a little bit more once we get into things. But yeah, finally over in this thing, see my Orc Marauders have just about made it to the mouth of this river crossing, and now the Athala Rangers are going to be able to play their hand. Those stealthy woodsmen are going to pop themselves out of hiding here and begin to put some serious fire into the flank of my Orc Marauders. Now, against these kinds of bunched up units like this that don't have a ton of armor, that BP is going to be pretty significant. That body-piercing projectile possibly hitting multiple foes here, scything through my Orc Marauders, and they're taking some pretty grievous losses as they cut across there. Now, one of those units is already down by nearly 50 men. But the Athala Rangers are not going to have time here. The speed of the reaction time of my Orc Marauders is going to be enough to push them off that island and back towards the safety of their own line. So now that we've got control of this central isle here, we do have control of a pretty significant strategic asset. Now from here we can launch attacks onto the other side of the river, and this is the only crossing, I believe, other than going across over on this end where Creed is keeping us at bay with his spearmen and moving all the way down the River Anduin. So this is an essential objective for our advance up the Anduin River, and we've managed to take it with relatively little loss at this point, so that's definitely a big win for us. A few dead Orc Marauders, I think, is a small price to pay. I would pay that many times over to take this position here. But now the rest of my allies are going to slowly begin to move forward, and in the face of their advance, the forces of Dale are going to be obliged to fall back. Now, there are a few reasons why I think they would want to do this. Now, when we were playing this, we suspected that they had some cavalry hidden over here, and what they wanted to do was draw us in to committing hard against the Dalish spear line so that they could just jump out of the forest and hammer and anvil us. So we're going to be a little bit more cautious about that as the game goes on, but you'll see exactly kind of what we're going to do there. But over on this end, we can go and take a look at the forces of Rhudaur under WK moving across the river, looking to take on the Dalish spearmen and wrest control of another strategic crossing from Creed's army. Now, if this assault fails, that is really not that big of a loss for us. Now, the Rhudaur swordsmen are actually holding up pretty well to that constant arrow fire, but now as they move across here, they're going to be getting hit in the flank here, all along the line, all along the longest axis of their infantry line, and it's going to be a little bit more deadly than it might otherwise be. But now running smack in to those Dalian spearmen, they're going to drop their spears and surge forward in their shield wall, and the Rhudaur swordsmen are going to be in a lot of trouble here. WK moving in with some reinforcements, looking to keep up the pressure here and try and force the crossing, but with the support that Creed has on the opposite bank, things are going to be real tough here for WK, especially with that with that catapult volley as well. Look at this, so many of these. I think there was like a direct hit there into the middle of one of these units. Look at that, so deadly on those Rhudaur swordsmen. Yeah, WK definitely has his work cut out for him, but at the moment he's just keeping those forces busy, which is kind of what we need while the rest of our allies move themselves into position. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward things just a little bit here, and yeah, just get the Orcs of Gundabad here, these two Orcs of Gundabad armies, a little bit farther up the bank, and then the real fun can begin. Popping back over to the other side of the river, WK doing real well against those spears. Ultimately, the Dalian spears are kind of overextending themselves a little bit, and against the Rhudaur swordsmen, who have a lot of damage, that is a very dangerous mistake to make. Now, spears inherently, as a product of the Medieval 2 engine, have a -3, I believe, penalty against other infantry units. So at best, they're going to be able to hold against these swordsmen. And these swordsmen are really high damage as well. So this is a losing fight, I think, for the forces of Dale, and Creed knows it. So he's going to move in now with the unit of his dismounted Earls. Very tough elite infantry. A lot of armor on these guys. Think about 9 or 10 armor. Again, very, very deadly. And it might just be exactly what Creed needs to hold down his crossing a little bit longer. Now, WK returning fire here onto the Dalian marksmen with some of his Cold Fell marksmen and his Arenadine Rangers, who are all hiding over here on the opposite bank, fairly well shielded from their enemies, and yeah, they're going to pop some pot shots there out from the tree line onto the Dalian marksmen. That's actually be pretty effective. Surprisingly enough, even with the shields that the Dalian marksmen have, you can see that they're taking some pretty significant casualties there from that focus fire. But overall, the struggle on this end, pretty well even. And over on this side, we are still waiting for our allies to move themselves into position, but they're getting very, very close now. And in preparation for that, I've actually massed quite a lot of my forces over here on this little isle. Now, I've got some of my Goblin Band here as well. We've only got a couple units, so I'm going to spread out my deployment as much as I can, leave some of my other forces on the opposite bank. Most of my elite forces, I think, are going to be back here to try and support WK in the event that he needs it, because he's really, really struggling against Creed over on that end. He's taking some pretty significant casualties. But over here, I'm going to use a lot of my Orc Marauders, a lot of my more fodder units to support the push here from my allies. Now, they've got a lot of elite forces there, and I want my forces to be the ones that die in their stead. So I brought some Spearmen here to protect their advance, and of course I got a large number of my Orc Marauders as well. So we're going to begin to ford the crossing here, and slowly but surely move towards those Dalian front lines. Now let's pop back over to the fight here between WK and Creed. WK now moving in with some Faradrim X-Men, trying to overlap the forces here, and it looks like Lorien is now going to be obliged to spring into action. Those Rhudaur swordsmen are going to find themselves caught now between the spears and swords of the Men of Dale and the merciless two-handed sabers of these Sindar Blade Masters. But it seems like Rules is going to decide against it ultimately, because of the presence of those Coldfell Marksmen over on the other side. So WK has really saved himself a lot of trouble here by using those Coldfell Marksmen to zone out those lightly armored Sindar Blade Masters. But there are still more Elves of Lorien lurking back here in the tree line. Of this we are absolutely certain. So the fight over on this end has really only just begun. And speaking of fights that are about to begin, you can see, oh, look at this. There was some hidden cavalry over there. Elder Pathfinders under Synn of the Darkcloud getting themselves caught out here, pinned in place by my infantry. Coming in from the rear now, you got some Witch Realm Pikemen with my Warg Riders getting a nice charge into the rear of these guys, and that's going to utterly destroy that unit of Warg Riders. Now, I think Creed was trying to move forward with some of his cavalry to maybe think about lending some aid to those Elder Pathfinders, but unfortunately, there was nothing that could be done for them. They're going to find their final resting place here under the shade of these trees, just as they would have wanted, I'm sure. Now over on this end, Nephi, as he moves in to approach the Dalish position, he's going to move forward with some of his pikemen here, and this is going to be really important. Now, we don't know what else they have in this big, long pass that circumvents the area. Actually, we do know they have an unit of Elder Pathfinders in there, a second unit. So he's going to move his pikes in and block this off. So now we have really nothing more to fear from the Elves of Mirkwood, at least in terms of their cavalry on this end. And I'm actually going to station a unit of my Warg Riders here as well to make sure that nothing manages to scoot by the vigilance of Nephi's forces. But yeah, things are still kind of just getting themselves... Both sides are getting themselves set up for that big showdown. So let's pop over to the other fight here. You can see second unit of Dalian Earls has turned the tide. The Faradrim Axemen and the Rhudaur Swordsmen have run into a brick wall that is the steel and valor of these Dalian nobility. And they're not going to give 1 inch of ground to these invaders, and you can see the Rhudaur Swordsmen just falling in droves to the vicious sword strokes of those Dalian Earls. Oh, pardon me, had to cough a little bit there. In any case, we're back, and yes, now finally the big fight can begin on the opposite bank. Now this is really where this is the fight that is worth all of the marbles, essentially. If we lose our armies here, or we take too much damage trying to push through Dale, and it looks like now some of the Woodland Realm have actually moved up, the Elves of Mirkwood here to support their Manish allies. This is a nice tiered defense. If we are bled too significantly throughout the coming fight, then once we get to this point, we're not really going to have a whole lot left, and they do still have some pretty significant reserves. You can see a lot of heavy Mirkwood infantry back here, some Hiri Neck, some Hiri Bang, and some Hiri Lang as well. A lot of the Elven strength is being kept in reserve while the Dalish are fighting on the front lines, which is a fairly Elven thing to do, I think. But yeah, this is the moment I think that we've all been waiting for. The Dalish spearmen waiting patiently in disciplined ranks as those orcs of Gundabad surge forward, chanting their war cries, shouting their praises to Sauron, and this is where it's going to get real ugly. One final reform here before the orcs of Gundabad charge into the fray. The Dalish spearmen going to be dropping their spears, receiving that charge, and that thin red line is going to be all that stands between the Anduin and the deadly machinations of the orcs of Gundabad. Now, those Dalian spearmen are not going to win this fight, not on their own, but they're is some hope here in the back. You can see Jirian's Paladins, formerly the Dale Paladins, charging forward into these orcs, supporting their red-cloaked brethren. And these orcs are going to be in a lot of trouble. Those Paladins, very deadly, heavy armor. There's also some supporting units in the back here, like the Lake Town River Patrol, getting ready to toss their deadly javelin payloads into the oncoming hordes of the orcs of Gundabad. Let's go ahead and let's slow that down just a little bit here. Pop back over to the other end and see just how WK is faring against those Paladins. More and more of his troops being committed here to try and press the issue with Dale, but it is just not enough. Those Paladins are crescent mooning a significant portion of the Rhudaur infantry right now. With a little bit of support here from the Elves of Lorien, they have now got the skirmish fight well in hand. Cinder Archers here ain't no joke. A lot of damage that they can do. Some Hereditary Rangers trying to hide up in the foothills to avoid that damage, but is not gonna be enough to hide them from the keen eyes of those Sindar archers. And you can see many of the Hereditary Rangers taking some pretty deadly volleys, and a lot of them are actually gonna fall to that accurate Elven arrow fire. Let's pop back on over to the other end and see just how this fight is going right now. Now, the Dalian Spearmen apparently winning here, although the Orc Marauder is managing to slowly but surely wrap around the Dalian position. Now, this is going to be a big problem. As you can see, the Orcs of Gundabad have actually managed to get around in large numbers. The Dalian Cavalry are going to try and thin them out here, get the situation under control on their left wing. I don't know if it's going to be enough. Oh, there's just so many of these Orc Marauders. They're going to follow that up with a nicely timed charge from the Hiri Dirith. Their bright sabers gleaming in the sunlight as they hack their way through the ranks of their hated foe, the Orcs of Gundabad. Now, those Hiri Dirith are going to have this situation well in hand. Now, there's actually a very large general charge here from a lot of the Elven Heavy Infantry, and that's going to be enough. This is all the pressure, I think, that the Elves of Mirkwood need to drive back these Orcish invaders, but it is not over yet. Stefan moving forward with another company of his Orc Marauders, trying to keep his foothold on the other side of the Elven and Mannish line. I don't know if he's going to be able to hold on to it, though. That's a lot of elves. Real deadly elves, too. Although on the main line, we have managed to have a lot of success here. Lake Town River Patrol getting themselves focus fired down now by a large number of Goblin trackers. Both mine and Stefan's really putting a lot of pressure here on this lightly armored Dalish unit. And they're now going to be forced to flee before they find themselves completely destroyed and caught up in melee with some of these Orc Marauders who have managed to breach the defenses of Dale. Never fear, though. The Elves of Mirkwood moving in with a company of their Huron Spearmen. That might be enough to plug this gap here once and for all. Orc and Elf charging together. And those Huronek are going to do a lot of work against those Orc Marauders. Now, they may be Spearmen, and it says to defeat a certain, but honestly, that's just the charge damage. Now, they're going to be able to turn that fight around real fast. These heavily armored, well-trained Elven Spearmen really doing a lot of work against these Orc Marauders here, but that is only a drop in the bucket. Look at this. Look at the forces that have yet to be committed. Stefan still has his Witch Raiders, and Nephi has yet to join the battle. There are some serious numbers here at the command of Sauron's forces, and it's going to be all that the Free Peoples can do to hold back that rising tide. Back over on this end, it looks like Dale basically has things well in hand. Rhudaur has really run into a brick wall here. Now, this is not exactly the kind of fighting that Rhudaur wants to be involved in, where they're taking constant arrow fire, unable to move forward, unable to use their numbers to outflank and surround their opponent. In this kind of straight fight, the low melee defense of Rhudaur units is going to turn against them. And the Dalian marksmen are slowly but surely being driven back here, along with the Swordmasters of Karnan, formerly known as the Dale Swordmasters, but Dale has done what they needed to do. This is only a small portion of Dale's forces, and they have really bled Rhudaur quite dry. So I'm going to move in with some of my Goblin band. I can see the cavalry on this end under Creed that are really causing a lot of problems here for my ally WK. So I'm going to get in there with those spears now that most of his ranged units have either run out of ammunition or been cut down, and use these spears to zone out his cavalry. But let's go ahead and let's slow things down, pop back over to the other end and see just how our forces are doing. It looks like the Elves have managed to turn things around. Wherever the Elves go, they managed to kind of push back the line to where it was, just where the Orcs of Gundabad seem to be gaining a little bit of ground. But this is a big problem here. A fairly zealous company here, a 52 now 51 Elven Spearmen pushed themselves far too far forward, overextended, and now there's a big gap in the Free People's line, which is going to allow the Orcs of Gundabad to possibly come in with some of their more heavier elite companies, like the Guardians of Karn Doom here, and charge their way straight through that gap. And it looks like some of the Hiri actually got themselves caught out here as well, trying to outflank, I think, these Orc Marauders, trying to surround them and destroy them. But now the Guardians of Karn Doom moving in, going to deny these guys the opportunity to retreat. And that's going to be some pretty heavy losses here for the Elves. Yeah, not at all the kind of losses that these guys can sustain. So let's take a nice little casual stroll here through the forest. Jirian's Paladins fighting alongside the Hiri Lang against the uncountable hordes of Gundabad. And it seems fairly even, although maybe the Elves are losing a little bit of ground at this point. But there's still a company of Daedalus Spearmen here who've been fighting pretty well since the beginning. I've actually committed a unit of my own Goblin Band here to try and outflank them, give my allies a little bit of support. Some Daelian Marksmen now looking like they're out of ammunition, going to move in, charge right on into my Goblin Band, and things are going to start to turn around, I think, on both of the flanks here. It really seems like the Free Peoples have the situation well in hand on either end of the line, but it's here in the center that things seem to be turning around. So the Hiri Dirith and the Hiranek now very heavily reduced. I actually got some of my own spearmen among them there, and yeah, not looking so great for them. Reinforcements, about 90 or so. Very healthy unit of Hiri Lang moving into the center, trying to outflank these Orc Marauders. That's going to be real effective. And I think, did I see some Palace Guard? No, that's just the officers. But oh man, I thought that they were already going back on the Palace Guard rather. That's desperation right there when you have to commit them. Over on this end, we have the Hiri Dwath, one of the very stealthy ranger units that may be becoming an assassin unit for the Elves of Mirkwood, moving themselves in, trying to thin out the Gundabad horde. We've also got our own archers, and these guys are very lightly armored, so this is not going to be the ideal position for them to be in. They could definitely be a little bit farther back, trying to leverage some of their range. Back lines here, still got some Athala Rangers, still got some fairly healthy bow companies. They're just putting an immense amount of pressure on our front lines, and it looks like Synn the Darkcloud has managed to straighten out his front lines. For the most part, the Men of Dale have fallen, but it is now the Elves who have risen to the task of holding the line, and they're actually doing a pretty good job of it. Yeah, they've really managed to get things back in order here. There's still some Paladins doing real nice work against Orc Fellers and Gundabad Guard and things like that. But ultimately, through weight of numbers, I think this is going to be in favor of the attackers, as you would expect at this point in the battle. They haven't had enough time, I think, to really whittle down our numbers. So let's move back over onto this end, and it looks like another unit of Paladins here getting themselves caught out in the fields. The forces of Rhudaur, along with a little bit of support here from my Orc Halberds and some hidden units here as well, a couple units of Black Wolves, have managed to force the crossing, finally, and wrest it from the hands of the Sons of Dale. But what are these Paladins doing out here right now? Yeah, this is really not a good place for them to be. These Trollshaw Berserkers, if they wanted to toss their Franciscas into these guys, that would be real ugly for them. But it seems like many of the forces of Dale have fallen back. They are still in relatively good order. Actually, I think the catapult crew got caught out. Creed managed to save most of his catapult crew, however, and they're now fleeing from the field. And it's going to be down to Lorien to try and check the advance. And they're doing pretty well. Sindar archers, now out of ammunition, fighting hard in melee. But these Orc Marauders are really just here to hold down important assets in place so that we can move in with other things. So it looks like Stefan has actually committed some of his forces over to this side of the river as well. Those Witchrealm Scourge Raiders charging down the Sindar archers. They're not going to win that fight, but if they can shave off some HP, that'll definitely be a win. Beautiful hammer and anvil here from Creed into the rear of those Orc Marauders. That's going to be enough, I think, to rout them. Indeed, they are going to break. And now, because we have so few forces, I think, in this area, they may have an opportunity to reclaim that catapult if they are quick about it. But yeah, so far, things seem to be more or less in hand for the forces of Dale and Lothlorien. They've still got some pretty strong elite units here. The Jirian's Paladins managed to escape with only losing 7 of their unit, and the Sindar archers and the rest of the Lorien host are well prepared to set up a second checkpoint here. That's going to be difficult for the significantly reduced forces of Rhudaur and the few auxiliaries that I could send over to help them here, my Orc Halberds and things like that, to penetrate. Let's move back on over to this end. This is the fight I'm sure you are all wondering about. Hiri Dirith holding the line. The Elves of Mirkwood still holding well against the Orcs of Gundabad. Let's go ahead and let's speed things up a little bit here. Nice little look through the woods. In the center, looks like the Elves of Mirkwood are beginning to fail under just the sheer pressure of all of these units. Look at that. Orc Fellers, Gundabad Guard, and Guardians of Karndoom all pushing their way here through the valiant swordsmen of the Hiri Lang. The Elves are having none of it, though. They are definitely making the Orcs pay for every inch of ground. Really get a good sense of those new Elven animations there, like the spinning kicks, the very graceful, fluid motion that those swordsmen can bring. Very fitting for the Elven factions. Oh man, those Jirian's Paladins have to be exhausted at this point. They have just done so much damage. Look at this, there's just piles of dead Orcs intermingled with a few of the Elves and even fewer Paladins. They have definitely made us pay for every step, but yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to hold on for too much longer, not with 9 of them left in the unit. Dalian Marksman is still holding on. They've done a lot to my Goblin band. They've actually butchered my Goblins. But some more reinforcements here from Nephi and from Stefan are going to be enough, I think, to see the remaining defenders off from this portion of the battle. So things have gone pretty well for the forces of Gundabad so far. We're still looking pretty healthy. Got a lot of units left to throw into the battle. A lot of like chaff units like the Orc Marauder intermingled with some of our elites like the Trolls of Gundabad and things like that. So things have gone pretty well. Pretty well, I would say. Over on this end, you can see WK moving in now with the cream of the crop. His forward rim javelins, got some troll shot axe throwers here as well, and some Heronidine troll hunters. They're actually going to get a nice buff in the coming hotfix. I think you're going to see these guys a little bit closer to 8 armor instead of the 5 that they currently have. And also got a surviving, very reduced company here of the Heronidine Rangers. Let's see what we got over here. Goblin Band. Yeah, we've really taken our time with this. Actually moving forward now with a couple units of my Orc Halberds. Trying to back up the push here from WK. He's got his Black Wolves in the mix as well. Looks like they were trying to catch the catapult, so Creed is going to manage ultimately to reclaim his catapult. Those Black Wolves are going to run smack into the Elves of Lorien, who are not going to give these savage men a single inch of ground while they are still alive. And that's going to be a solid victory here for Lorien. See some of the Karas Galathon Guardians moving up as well against the Black Wolves. Oof, that is going to hurt. But these guys are definitely too far forward. I think they should have been holding the line here a little bit, getting a little bit of backup from the swordsmen as well. Would have been the ideal. We don't really have a whole lot of missile units here, which are what these units tend to fear. So I think moving forward like this is a little bit premature, and that may result in those the Karas Galathon's Guardians being surrounded. And indeed, that is already beginning to happen. You can see WK moving around behind the pikes with his mercenary war chiefs. They're going to turn around and charge headlong into those elite Galadrim warriors. Now, let's see what we got over here. Some Bardian marksmen as well. Now retreating, and looks like Lorien in general seems to be fighting a bit of a holding action right now. So while their spear companies are holding the line, the rest of their army are retreating safely across the Anduin to these rivers here, where the Elves of Mirkwood are still holding back the majority of their reserves, of their remaining reserves, and there's a few men of Dale here as well, some of the Athala Rangers and things like that. So this is going to be a pretty epic last stand, if you'll permit the use of the term. Let's pop back on over to this side and see just what's happening. It looks like final defeat here for the remaining Elves of Mirkwood it has come to pass. There's a lot of dead elves here underneath the boughs of these trees. A lot of dead orcs as well, but we can afford the losses. The Elves of Mirkwood, however, cannot. Yeah, so now it's just a matter of licking our wounds, reforming with some of our remaining vanguard companies, and beginning the trek towards the final position. And it's going to be a lot for us to do. I think there's still some surprises yet to come. So, yeah, we're definitely going to have to be on our toes. Now, over on this side, you can see the Lorien Spearmen really doing some serious work here. Lorien Swordsmen as well, cleaning up the Trollshot Berserkers. But now the WK has had the opportunity to bring some of his missile units over to this end. This is where things might start to turn around. That's looking like 3 or so units of those Ferodrim Javelins. They are all HP, so this is going to be real ugly. Let's see what they decide to do. I'm real curious. Yeah, while we wait, some of these Faradra Maxmen charging in support of the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders, the Maior Halberds, and the Black Wolves. Looking like the Karis Galathon Guardians here being a little bit thrown away almost. Now, they're holding their ground, and they've actually done a fair amount of damage to those Mercenary War Chiefs. You can really see how deadly this unit of pikes can be. But ultimately, they will be brought down. Let's see what we got here. A lot of ready Faradram Javelins, and now that Lorien has fallen back with all of their archer companies, they're basically at the mercy of Rhudaur's ferocious mid-range skirmish power. Big volley there into those Lorien swordsmen. Ooh, that is painful. Yeah, now's a real good time to fall back with these guys while there is still some swordsmen left to save. Ooh, but I don't think Rules is going to do it. He's going to try and cut down what remains of those Trollshaw Berserkers and hold back the tide for as long as he can. But it looks like some of the spear companies now retreating. Gearing Paladin's going to give them the time that they need to retreat back to the safety of their lines. Karis Galathon Guardians valiantly giving their lives so that their comrades may flee. Some Angmar enslavers here. Looks like some of the Lorien companies might have turned around. Oh no, that's the Bardian Marksman under Creed there, putting down some covering fire as the remaining spear companies from Lorien begin to flee off the battlefield. Well, not off the battlefield, but back towards the safety of their friends across the river. Speaking of across the river, over on this end, moving forward slowly but surely, Stefan and what remains of my support companies, along with the reserve army of Nephi, which is still in great condition. Look at this. Still some Blackwatch Legion and things like that yet to come. Some very strong cavalry units and some heavily armored infantry as well, and just a horde of trolls and wargs. Now, this is where I decided to do something a little bit sneaky with my wargs. Now, I'm going to slow things down just so we don't miss a moment elsewhere. Now, my warg riders, I've noticed that there's not really a whole lot coming out of here, coming out of this pass. And I don't think that they've got their Elder Pathfinder stationed there anymore. In fact, I think I saw them over in the ruins. So I'm going to take my warg riders. I'm actually going to move them through this pass, take the long way around, stopping every so often to hide my wargs so that they don't see me, and possibly launch an attack on their back lines at an opportune moment. And that is, of course, going to free up this company of Witch Realm pikemen, very disciplined, who have been sitting in this pass, guarding it pretty well for the rest of the battle. And they're going to be able to now move towards the front lines. Let's kick things back up to normal speed, and you can see that we've swept away all that remains of the Lorien garrison on this end of the river. Quite a lot of blue cloaks laying face down on the ground. But look at this, even despite the numbers that we threw against them, those Karis Galathon Guardians are still standing. Like I said, a very expensive, very deadly unit. But once those Faradram Javelins and things like that begin to turn their sights on them, they're going to melt away quite quickly. This is the big counter to a unit like the Karis Galathon Guardians. That looks like maybe WK made a bit of a mistake here. No, he finally stopped them at the last moment. He's going to pull them out of there so that Rules isn't able to charge down his Faradram Javelins. Meanwhile, the rest of his companies are firing into this small remaining band of Karis Galathon Guardians, and that's going to be basically all she wrote for these poor stranded individuals. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward things just a little bit. Looks like we've got a little bit of a scrap over here. Some of the Dalish cavalry charging down the Gundabad lines, trying to thin out the orcs of Gundabad. That second company of Pathfinders also over here as well, along with a vestigial force of skirmishers. Some Hiri Bang as well from the Mirkwood side, as well as some of the Hiri Dwarf, trying to just do as much damage as possible and not give up ground to the orcs of Gundabad quite so easily. Big charge here from the Elder Pathfinders into those orc fellers. That's going to be real ugly. And they're going to carry on right through into the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders. And now, of course, they're going to have to be careful. Nephi, I believe, is moving up with some of his companies of pikemen. Now, that's going to be enough to put the fear of Melkor into the hearts of these Elder Pathfinders. And they are now going to flee in the face of that inexorable orcish advance. And now, at this point, we have almost made it to the front line. So these two units of cavalry, the Dalish cavalry charging in the battle alongside their Elder Pathfinder allies. One final charge here. Although they are going to connect some of those pike companies, and while they do some damage to them, they do take quite a lot of casualties in return, and that's going to be enough, I think, to make these guys retreat now behind the lines, especially with that Goblin Tracker support that you can see in the back here from Stefan. I think I've got mine mixed in there as well. That's going to be enough to maybe make these guys think twice here. No, looks like they're going to pull out and go straight for one of the high-value assets, exactly what you want to do here. A very good call on the part of Synn of the Darkcloud, charging right through those Guardians of Carndoom, absolutely flattening them alongside the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders. But unfortunately, with the presence of so many of these Orcs of Gundabad and the constant arrow fire and the casualties that they've received, that's going to be enough to make these Elder Pathfinders begin to break and rout. Although I'm pretty sure that they reform, so we'll see them again later. I wonder what happened to the Dalian Cav. I wonder if they met with a terrible fate. Possibly. Nope, they are definitely still here. So they pulled back. Greed still has his Dalian Cav to use in any more opportunistic charges here, trying to slow down the advance of the Orcs of Gundabad. Now this is a real precarious position that they find themselves in. Yes, they have combined all of their forces into this small area. They have artillery support, they have archer support, they've got elites, they've got numbers. But we've got numbers too, and there's really nowhere left to run at this point. And it doesn't seem like they've really done enough damage to us on the approach that they're going to have an easy time with this. Still, it is dead even right now, 52 to 51. But we'll see. We'll see just what happens here. Stefan sending forward some of his Orc fellers here, looking like he's going to get a quick, dirty little charge here against the Hiranek, trying and whittle down as many of these Elven Spearmen as he possibly can. If these guys all die, no big deal. But the Hiranek at this point are irreplaceable for Mirkwood. So it looks like one or two of those Spearmen are actually going to fall in battle there against the Orc fellers before they break. See some Elven Javelins here under Lorien. Moving forward, that's going to be a big problem for those Blackwatch Legion, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they are setting their sights on. And you can see over here, the Elves have picked their targets real well. Some of the Hammer Guard here under Stefan moving forward, trying to be sneaky and move under cover of these trees, but unfortunately for him, the keen eyes of the Elves have seen those heavily armored Orcs coming, and they're going to put some serious focus fire into them. So unless the Blackwatch Legion are going to be able to get in there and shield for them, then this could get real ugly. Javelins now coming in all along the line here. Defenders doing their utmost to cut down these important Gundabad assets before they make it to the front line. Big general charge here all along the line. See some other Hammer Guard here moving in support of the Guardians of Carndoom alongside some Witch Realm Scourge Raiders. This is very much the first wave, however. It seems like a pretty big commitment, but it is only a part of what is to come. See some artillery shots here. Going forward towards... Ooh, that's going to be ugly. Looks like they're going after the Witch Realm Inquisitors, or possibly even the Trolls of Gundabad. We're actually taking some pretty light casualties here as well. And actually, I mean, in a unit of 12, losing 2 of them is a pretty big deal. But yeah, big catapult shot there, landing right in the middle of those hidden Orc Marauders. Defenders trying to use their artillery to thin out our ranks, but it's just... There's just so many of us. One dies, 3 more pop up to take its place. Now you can see that the vanguard of their army has, of our army rather, has begun to take its toll here. Balanced forces evenly matched. I'm going to try and even the fight a little bit, move in with some of my Witch Realm Scourge Raiders, and it's going to oblige Creed to now move in with his Bardian Marksmen, who are out of ammunition, but still reasonably capable heavy infantry after the fact. Over on this end, Nephi has now moved in with some of his own Scourge Raiders to back up the Witch Realm Hammer Guard, who are trying to smack their way through that Lorien spear wall. But so far, the spear companies of the valiant elves of the Golden Wood have stood firm in the face of this ferocious advance. Over on this end, though, things not looking so great. The Blackwatch Legion, rather, doing what they do best, and they are just muscling their way through the elven lines. Now, there's not a ton of them left. They've taken probably about a third of the unit in casualties. And there's still these Laketown River Patrol here who can just fire point blank into them. Some Elven Javelins looking like they've tossed their payloads into these guys already. But yeah, the Blackwatch Legion are going to find themselves in a lot of trouble. Looks like some of those Laketown Patrol tossing their Javelins downwards, trying to get as many kills as possible, thin out our forces in the center. And this is where disaster strikes. Bardian Marksman coming face to face with the Trolls of Angmar under Nephi. And that is going to be all that we need in order to break this part of the line. And now this is going to be down to the Elves of Mirkwood to charge in with their reserve companies, the Hiri Beng. archers now, out of ammunition, charging headlong into the Trolls of Angmar, doing their best to hold back the tide of darkness. You can see Lorien moving forward as well. This is actually kind of awesome. It's like that charge at Helm's Deep. Big charge here coming in from Lorien as well. The elves, they have been fighting the orcs for thousands of years. This is just another Tuesday for them. Outnumbered and outgunned, I'm sure some way they will find the means to pull out a victory. It's a lot of two-handed curved blades here. I don't think the orcs of Gundabad are going to have quite the easy time that they expected they were. Another charge in there from the supporting cavalry under Creed. Get a nice charge into the front of those Blackwatch Legion. And it looks like the Gundabad advance here is being slowed down by this sudden influx of just so many elven warriors. Athalo Rangers now moving in as well. This is just a big general charge here on the part of the Free Peoples. Doing everything that they can to hold down these Gundabad assets. Another charge here from the rear with the Lorien Axemen. Second company of Axemen moving in. These Blackwatch Legion are just falling in droves. And the Trolls of Gundabad here, alongside the Angmar Trolls, are really finding themselves running up against a brick wall. Over in the center, things are not looking quite so hopeful. While the Lorien Spear Company still stands strong and says victory is certainty for them, there are just so many orcs of Gundabad here. Elves doing all that they can to hold the line. They have actually started to pull things back a little bit on this end. The Witch Realm Hammerguard not doing so great. Stefan now falling back on his Triarii, as it were, moving in with his Witch Realm Blackguard, trying to just keep these assets pinned and weaken the army as much as he can, so that the Elves of Lorien aren't going to be able to move in any more forces over here to try and support these guys. The Blackwatch Legion really have just gotten torn apart here by all of these elves. Most of the trolls as well have fallen. And there's a lot of elven swordsmen here that the orcs of Gundabad are going to have to cut their way through. It looks like the palace, is that the palace guard? Yeah, the palace guard in here as well. Wow, they have really doubled down on the defense here. Let's try and get a good shot of those palace. Look at this guy. Just hacking people down, even in the midst of a crowd of foes, unscathed, still killing. Let's see if we can get another one off. Oh, nice block there. Big charge from the orcs of Gundabad, though. That might be enough to sweep away those beleaguered palace guard. Oh, another palace guard getting a nice kill with his glaive. Everywhere, the orcs of Gundabad and elves falling together on the bloody banks of the River Anduin. It looks like the orcs of Gundabad trying to regain a little bit of momentum. You can see them really surging through the lines here, overrunning the elves in the center, just as they did a little bit farther up. The notoriously feeble center. The flanks were definitely well defended, but in the center here, things are not going so great. Elder Council guards going to be the ones here to try and hold the line, plug that gap alongside their Hiri Bang brothers. Ooh, and this other council guard, they're just getting swarmed right now. That's why they're not doing so well. Orcs everywhere, although now maybe they'll start to be able to pull things back a little bit. Yeah, now with the support of the Hiri Bang and the Elder Council guards fighting together, a few Lorien Axemen in here as well on the flank, just trying to plug this massive gap. The Orcs of Gundabad just surging through. And oh, actually, I forgot about this. Yeah, I moved in with my wargs, finally. Tried to get a piece of this Laketown River Patrol, trying to get a piece of the Elder Kingsguard as well. Unfortunately, I wasn't really able to do too much. This is going to be one glorious death charge here into the Lorien Archers, trying to disrupt their skirmish fire for as long as possible. My Warg Rider is going to rout and begin to flee off the battlefield, and that's all we're going to see from them. That's really all that they managed to accomplish, was a handful of kills on a routing unit and a decent enough charge here into the Lothlorien Heavy Archers. Countercharge there from the Pathfinders, looking like they want to finish off my Warg Riders, but I think they have some more pressing concerns right now, and that being some serious routing here. A lot of Hiri Bang and a lot of Lorien Spearmen now fleeing in the face of the inexorable Orcus advance. Small company here of the Elder Council guards trying to hold back the Orcs of Gundabad to prevent this rout from becoming a complete disaster. The Elder Council guards now coming face to face with the Black Numenorians, the Witch Realm Blackguard of Gundabad. With their AP, with a little bit of support, normally these guys would do pretty well. But in this kind of situation where they're just being overrun, they don't really have a decent formation here. This is going to be real ugly. Elsewhere in the center, this is really where things have gone very poorly. Thranduil's bodyguards now being committed to the fight, trying everything that they can to hold back there's just the innumerable tide here of Gundabad orcs. There's just so many of them. Over in this end, you can see the Lorien axemen have actually retreated a little bit. Now up the hill, the Sindar and the Sylvan Elves making a stand together on the top of this hill, fighting back to back. It looks like I've actually moved in some of my own trolls here, some of my my mountain trolls. Ooh, the Witchers! This is where it gets real bad. The old Dragon Slayers are taking it on the face. You can hear the screams of the dying as they burn alive. Let's see, we got one more shot here. The Elves, I think, could have stood for a very long time if those Witchers weren't present. And honestly, I didn't even know about them until I saw them, until I saw those telltale streams of fire. Let's see, one more shot from the Witchers, maybe? No? This is definitely a tempting target here, all these Lorien axemen. Looks like the Lorien heavy archers now being committed to the fight. Another charge there from the supporting cavalry. The Dale cavalry getting a beautiful charge here into all of these orcish archers. Looks like the Elven Javelins, a second unit of them, tossing their payload into the Witch Realm Hammer Guard. And into the Scourge Raiders as well, reaping a terrible toll, somehow single-handedly holding back the advance of the Gundabad and Rhudaur forces. Just look at the damage that these guys have done. I got the Witchers over there. The Witchers now reloading. I want to see what they do. Oh, I think I know what they're targeting. Oh, this is going to be ugly. Wait for it. Wait for it. Aw, oh, come on, do it. No, apparently not. No, they're going to move forward slightly. So the Elves still holding the line, although very much outnumbered at this point. Although still quite a healthy number of Lorien axemen over on this end. They're doing their best to hold things back. But yeah, slowly but surely the Elves have been overwhelmed. 77 to 89% at this point. Although with the influx of Lorien archers, plus some of these Elven Javelins over here to try and hold things down, maybe they can stand long enough to make an ending worthy of song. Looks like we've got some breaking here amongst the Lorien axemen. Surprising. Even without the aid of the Witchers, these Lorien forces are actually being routed here by just the sheer numbers and brutality of the Orcs of Gundabad. Ooh, look at that guy. Having a very bad day. Let's see what we got. Elven Javelins here with all of their compatriots fleeing. They're actually shaken themselves. Could start to see the rest of the Elven army evaporate around that big route there from the Lorien main line. All Faradrim Axemen have now come around on the flank alongside the Trollshot Axe Throwers. Looks like we got some of the Elder Kingsguard here reaping a terrible toll amongst the Axe Throwers and the Faradrim Javelins, trying to protect the flank of the Elder Javelins, or the Elven Javelins rather, for as long as they can. Another big charge there from the Elder Pathfinder, or the Elder Kingsguard, bowling over those Faradrim Javelins. Ooh, they're going to counter it with a big Javelin volley right into the rear of those Elder Kingsguard. It's going to kill most of the remaining unit. We got some more routing here. Lorien Archers and Lorien Axemen fleeing together. This is basically it. And we got in the back here some Thranduil's Bodyguard fighting against the Witch Realm Blackguard. A charge from the rear by all that remains of the Elder Kingsguard. Enough to make these guys think twice and try and pull out of that engagement. But at this point, most of the Elven army has evaporated. I think it's quite clear who's going to come out on top in this. Whoa! Witcher shots! Ooh, right into the Thranduil's Bodyguard. Be moving forward as well. Some of the Goblin Trackers. Ooh! Big shot there! Now, I'm sure many of you out there are thinking, wow, that is way too many shots coming out of the one Witcher unit. I agree. and it's actually getting toned down. They're going to have 3 shots instead of 4, which is perfectly reasonable, I think, for a high-risk, high-reward unit like the Witchers. So, indeed, they won't have the same kind of longevity that you were seeing in the video right now, but still, damn, those Thranduil's bodyguard got their world turned upside down by the deadly magic of those Barrow Wights. And at this point, looking like 80% to 98%. So out of 16,000 orcs, 80% of them are dead. Oh, wow. Indiscriminate friendly fire there. Oh, never mind. It looks like they're just going after the Elder Kingsguard, who are charging into the Witchers. Ooh. Thranduil himself is the last one standing of the entire Elven army from the looks of things. Well, maybe there's a few units over here. Some Galadrim nobles fighting hard against these orcs of Gundabad. Let's slow things down just a little bit. Take a moment here to enjoy Thranduil's last stand. Ooh, he's going to get a nice hit there on one of those Witchers. Ooh, another hit onto those Barrow Wights, but their unholy resilience is going to keep them standing longer than normal men. Let's take a moment here to just review. Look at the damage that was caused here. Thousands dead on either side. The orcs of Gundabad, having left a trail of their dead all the way up the banks of Anduin on both sides of the river, especially over on this end. This is probably where we paid the heaviest cost, but it was just ultimately not enough. There was too many of the orcs of Gundabad, and the elves of Mirkwood and their allies were just not able to do the damage that they wanted to. So Thranduil is going to finally fall to a killing stroke from one of my trolls. That's going to be basically it. Still, a very, very stalwart defense on the part of the Free Peoples. They were horrendously outnumbered, and ultimately I think about 11,000 or so kills is nothing to sneeze at. So let's go ahead and let's fast forward here right down to the end. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you guys want to see some more big scenarios like this in the future, by all means, let me know. So, oh yeah, look at this. A few of the Sindar archers who are the only ones remaining. So it wasn't Thranduil, it was the last one standing after all. Well, that's going to be Haldir, I believe, falling there amongst the ruins of his bodyguard. And that is a close victory for the forces of Gundabad. Now, look at the damage that those defenders did. 5,000 kills from Creed. If his allies had managed to do as much as Creed had done in this battle, I don't think that we would have won. Now, Synn and Rules definitely did their best, and they had some great plays there. But I think something that really played against the defenders very early on was the early loss of that company of Elder Pathfinders. That would have been a big asset to use against us, especially just before the last stand when they had their companies of cavalry out there hitting us hard on the advance. If they had another company of cavalry to be out there supporting the rest of the cav, I mean, that could have killed maybe a few hundred more orcs, or maybe even as much as 1,000, depending on how they pick their battle. So ultimately, the defenders were overwhelmed, but damn, it was a fine victory, it was a fine battle nonetheless. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, and yeah, hope you guys will join me next time. We're going to have some Tomb Kings coming up next, also some 4th Age, and the conclusion to our Warhammer 2 Vortex series. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.